Earlier this year, we started a subgroup in our leadership team to look for ways to keep nature's rights at the forefront of our work. And to kick off our discussion tonight, the coordinator of our Rights of Nature group, Judy Glass, whose background is in history, economics, and kick-ass activism, would like to share a brief history of rights. Judy?
Thank you, Diana. So to introduce our discussion of rights of nature tonight, I'd like to begin with some historic highlights about the rights of humans. More than 50 years ago, Christopher Stone, recently deceased, authored a pioneering work called Do Trees Have Standing? Toward legal rights for natural objects. Stone quotes from a 19th century court decision refusing women the right to practice law in Wisconsin. The court stated that the nature of women, purity, delicacy, emotional impulses, gentle graces, disqualifies her for the legal battlefield. In his book, Stone editorializes that the movement to confer new rights is, and I quote from him, bound to sound odd or frightening or laughable, because until the rightless thing receives its rights, we cannot see it as anything but a thing for the use of us, those of us who are holding rights at the time, end quote. For over 1,000 years, since the barons challenged the King of England in the 13th century, we have been gaining human rights. In the 18th century, in the United States, we codified into law inalienable rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Representative government, freedoms of speech, press, religion, and assembly. In the 19th century, men without property earned the right to vote, and Blacks were freed from slavery. The 20th century saw women's suffrage after 75 years of agitation and new civil rights laws. And the 21st century saw social rights for LGBTQIA+ individuals and communities. Those were social justice rights. Now let's look briefly at the human struggle for economic rights, because this is where the analogy with the new rights of nature movement is so compelling. The building blocks, the resources of any economy are land, labor, and capital. From the point of view of the economy, labor is a cost, but labor is human life. And a long struggle ensued to recognize that fact. To reduce work hours and gain legal rights to organize unions took all of the 19th century and half of the 20th. Eliminating child labor, requiring minimum years of schooling, minimum wages, paid vacations, pensions, Social Security, none of that happened before the middle of the 20th century. Recognizing healthcare as a right is still not established in the United States. So all of this hard fought, and all of it took a hell of a long time. Similarly to labor, land is an abstraction, a cost, a resource to be used to create wealth. But in the late 20th century, a new movement for rights was born, a rights of nature movement focused on preserving the environment. Enter lawyers from around the world and nations like Ecuador and New Zealand, and local communities like Santa Monica, and filmmakers like two of our guests tonight, whose consciousness mirrors that of indigenous people all over the world, all arguing for giving standing to trees, to rivers, to volcanoes, to animals, to nature, seen now as alive, as more than land, more than resources, as humans are now seen as more than labor. Diana, I turn the
Thank
program
you.
back to you.
Thank you very much, Judy, and thank you for your leadership this past year to move forward in this direction.